Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Light of Insight. I'm your host, Nina, and today we have a very special guest that I am super excited to talk with. We have Toshika, who is a career coach and creative consultant who is currently enrolled in a master's program in psychology and neuroscience at King's College, London. Welcome to the podcast, The Light of Insight, Toshika.
Thank you so much, Nina, for having me. This is so exciting. It's first
I'm
time
so
recording podcast,
excited.
so thank you
Is
so,
this
so
your
much.
first podcast?
I mean, I have recorded for like in-house project or like for myself, but not never being invited as a guest. So this is such a huge honor. Thank you, Nina.
It's such an honor that you're appearing first on The Light of Insight as a guest. I'm even more excited. The first question I like to ask my guests on The Light of Insight is what's lighting you up right now?
Yeah, that's such a lovely question, and it kind of shows like your character, so I love that. It's really small, like self-care routine, really, like morning walks with my dog, or my favorite Wednesday night yoga class, or post-dinner ice cream. Those like really small, minor moments of everyday life, but it's crucial that it allows me to like pause and breathe and yeah, keep me lit up.
I love that so much. I also have a weekly Wednesday night yoga class
Yeah.
that I'm going to be going to tonight after we record. So
Yeah,
that's
one day
amazing.
is a night.
I love that so much. I think it's going to help my listeners to get a little bit more of your story and background. So, if you can, wherever you feel comfortable sharing your story.
Yeah, so I think you captured amazingly like what I am today. So today I'm a certified transition coach. I help my clients navigate toward their goals in life, whether it's next career move or family matter or really whatever in life. And yeah, as you mentioned, I'm also conducting research in neuropsychology at King's College London. But yeah, this is actually my second career. And my background hasn't always been in psychology. I worked in advertising for many years, and I studied design, experience design, then became a producer working with top global brands in both London and Tokyo. That was my background. In 2021, I moved to New York City after getting this opportunity to open a subsidiary of this boutique advertising agency. That's when my role shifted to more of a business owner. And I started like grinding hard, as you can imagine. And I had always worked long hours, but during this period, this time, I truly lost my balance. It unfortunately started showing up like physically first. I temporarily lost hearing in my left ear and suffered from like IBS every day, and was later diagnosed with adjustment disorder. I felt miserable and sad and basically like really unhappy every day. And what alarmed me the most was that wasn't my first diagnosis. It was like third time a doctor told me that I had adjustment disorder. So I had experienced that the same thing back in Tokyo as well. So yeah, it was somewhat a wake up call, and I knew something had to change. So the past 4 years had been a journey of unpacking my own trauma. A lot of it had to do with my childhood. I lost my dad when I was 2 and my mom when I was 17. And I later discovered that I had two more fathers as well. And something that I only learned during upon my mom's death. So through this period, through this process, I realized that I had coped with all that grief by really numbing myself, especially my emotions. So, yeah, at the same time, I was engaged and planning for marriage and family. So, I knew I had to learn how to make myself happy, and not just me, but out of respect for future husband. So, yeah, that's basically why I decided to face my trauma, but take a leap to shift my career to something that felt more aligned.
Thank you so much for sharing, Toshika. I'm curious. It's interesting. I've heard recently about adjustment disorder, but just for my listeners who haven't heard about this, can you explain what this is?
Yeah, I think I'm wondering if your listener also is like familiar in Japanese culture, but in Japanese it is Tekio Shogai. Basically, from diagnosis perspective, whoever I remember my third diagnosis, I asked my psychotherapist not to diagnose me as depression. So whoever has a little bit ambiguous or stage zero of adjustment disorder, sorry, depression, they would put adjustment disorder. But basically, you would show either symptoms such as like physical, including appetite, not necessarily only like thoughts, but also physical symptoms that is linked to stressor, like stress symptoms. I think they tend to use this term adjustment disorder, but that is not the diagnosis that you can have. How do you call this? Like a sick leave, but a longer term? Is there such term in?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so with adjustment disorder, it is like not as serious as that, but
Hmm.
basically that you have to take care of yourself to heal your bodily symptoms or mental symptoms. That's the diagnosis.
Oh my goodness. It's so interesting. I was just talking to someone yesterday who told me she had adjustment disorder
Mm,
and went through this period of just go, go, go,
yeah,
hyper masculine,
yeah,
like
environment.
career woman hierarchy.
Right.
And then she was diagnosed with adjustment disorder. So I'm sure this is quite common
It is quite,
among women too. I'm
yeah.
not sure. Yeah, I can imagine, especially in Japan right now, if it's something women struggle with this sort of like shift in career focus,
Mm,
climbing up, working really, really hard to get to a place that wasn't traditionally accepted.
yeah. I wonder, I don't know about the that gender ratio, for example, like
Mm.
for the first place, maybe women tend to go deal with it more with professionals' help. I think that number might be uneven to start off. Is yes, I don't have like data with me, but that would be my guess as well. I'm not sure about if it's more common in women. I have to look up for that.
Yeah, wow. And going back to part, I want to kind of focus and zoom in on different parts of your story that you just shared. So you also come from a multicultural background and
Yeah.
different transitions, different cities. I'm curious, how has it been? I guess my first question would be, how would do you answer what home is for you? Is it a
Ah,
place? Is it a feeling? Is it something? Because I really, whenever I'm asked, like, what's your background? Where are you from? I get a little bit like, I can't say this in one
many
sentence.
versions. Yeah.
So I'm curious
Um,
with you.
Yeah, that's a hard question. It actually happened to me last week at a wedding. Somebody
Mm.
asked me, "Oh, so where'd you come from?" And then I said, "I'm so used to describing me like as Japanese, so like, oh, I'm Japanese." And then he's like, "Oh, no, sorry. Like, where did you fly in from? Like, where do you live?" So yeah, indeed, many versions of this. I love, and I also love to know your versions, your answers as well to this question. But I love that you brought up that is that a feeling? Because I think definitely is a feeling of people. And I recently cultivated this feeling of like coming back to home, like coming back to myself. I think that's how I make a physical location home. And in that sense, I currently live in the Netherlands and it's been 10 months since moving here, but like it is already home to me because I have good community base. I know how like this environment make me align with myself. So that is home already. But yeah, again, if there's a global like socializing setting and people come and ask me where I'm from, where's your home, I would say I would just phrase it as like I'm Japanese. I'm born and bred in Japan. That's how I would briefly answer. But what's yours?
Yeah, yeah. I love what you just said, and I really resonate with home being somewhere where I feel connected to my heart and aligned with who I am as a person. And you also mentioned that home is a place, like it's a place where you can connect with your people, the
Mm,
people who see you, who understand you. And I grew up in Montana for 18 years and then moved to California for college and then moved to Tokyo now over 7 years ago, since 2018. And I would say each one has been my home in different
Mm,
ways and in different versions for different versions of myself. And I also feel like home is like it's a wave if we're using home as this place connected to yourself, where right now I honestly feel like I'm not at home in Tokyo.
yeah.
But I really felt this the past, I would say, from 2020 to 2023 during COVID time. I felt very connected here, very luckily. But now I'm kind of going through the wave and like, ooh, I'm feeling like I want something different as a place and environment. Although I have such a beautiful community here, I
Mm,
also feel myself wanting to experience more. And so I
right.
have been feeling a little bit disconnected from myself. Therefore, it's hard for me to say I'm at home right now.
Yeah, your wave metaphor was so beautifully capturing, and you said that like this is home versus at home. It's a completely different feeling sometimes, especially like the wave is like coming through. I can imagine. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you gonna wait for that wave to go, or are you gonna ride on the wave?
You know what? I've been riding on the wave. I've been riding on the wave
Mhm.
for, I would say, the past probably half a year. I also
Okay.
think this wave has been getting stronger because I graduated recently
Yes,
from my
congratulations to
PhD.
that.
Thank you from my program. So I also wonder, and I want to ask you this during big shifts in your life, like when you shifted from a different to a different career
Yeah.
and a different place, when there's transitions in your life happening, it feels like the wave gets very big, like it turns
Mhm.
into like a pro surfer wave.
Yeah.
And personally, for me, I'm transitioning from not like I was a student for basically all of my life to now not a student. Now I'm an educator. Now I teach students and now I coach individuals. So there's this deeper sense of responsibility and more of like I feel like more adulting in a way too. But I understand that the changes externally are creating this feeling of the wave is getting bigger, but I'm also like, ooh, I still have a sense of control here.
Yeah.
So I'm interested with you in your many transitions in
Mm.
your life. How have you been able to, if we use this metaphor of the wave, have you been able to ride this wave or is it more like maybe there's a different metaphor that comes to your mind with moves and transitions and changes?
Yeah, this got me thinking because as I described earlier, my New York era definitely like that wave swallowed me,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to take off from the surfboard. I think that was one instance. I usually, it also was interesting your instance of that, it's identity thing. The move transition that you're experiencing is that I had been a student for a long time. It has been my core identity. And now you kind of have to like transition to a new identity, which is like coach and teacher. And that's usually like how I plan my, like set my goals or like plan my journey as well. I try to imagine who I want to be rather than what I want to be doing. I think that's interesting that in that wave metaphor, you're the writer, and what kind of writer that you want to be. Are you want to be writing, or are you going to be like traveling to take a break, or are you want to be stopping by somewhere shore to rest? I think that has been always how I kind of planned my next move and transitions. So in terms of, I know that the question was like, yeah, what was the experience like of my recent move to either Netherlands, Amsterdam, or to New York? I think it was the first one. The New York was like for the bigger ambition, and for Amsterdam, Netherlands was I knew what I was after, which was peace. I wanted to lead a peaceful life. So while there's of course something that I had to let go, especially like community, community is a big one, friends. Um, them and I can't really easily move them with me. So that's yeah, but I moved to gain something in term through like based on my journey or goals. So those moves in recent year, it's nothing hard compared to like what my parents had gone through, like immigration to somewhere that you have zero connection, no internet,
Mm.
Basically, for the next generation, you don't even get to have, the benefit of in turn of what you're sacrificing, but only for the next generation sort of move. I can always think about that if I make myself a move. I compare that a lot with my parents, but it's nothing at that level. It's something to always remind myself of.
I like what you said, and so relatable. Your move to Amsterdam was this overarching goal of peace,
Yeah.
wanting to feel that sense of peace. And I just felt like such a warm feeling in my heart when you said that, because deep down, I think that's what a lot of us really want
Yeah.
is peace. And I'm sure that New York, I'm not sure what the dream or goal was, but when I think of New York, there's so much energy and people, and I feel like I'm talking about Tokyo right now too, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it's
In
just
many ways.
so much happening. And what I also find interesting is in these big cities, it's a lot of us feel very lonely.
Yeah.
Even though there's so much happening and so many people, it's like you're this small fish in this big sea, and it's hard, especially when you move here, it's hard to find your people and your passions and really who you are. And but you said something where you have to let go
Mhm.
of kind of a version of you in
Yeah.
order to step into this new version in this new city. And it sounded like for you, it was, of course, your community. It sounded like a
Yeah.
beautiful community that you had in New York. Can you speak a little bit about, and I've been thinking about this a lot, identity is so difficult to let go of
Yeah.
and like allow yourself to step into something new.
Yeah. I think this interestingly goes back to our home conversation earlier. That if I reflect back to my recent move from New York City to Amsterdam, the key was also like that I already knew who I was. I knew where my home was. Again, like it's inside me and how to connect with my family and friends who knows who I am. And I know how to come back to it always, like reconnect with myself and those people. And that in that way, I feel like I am becoming myself in my after realizing what I don't want and I am happily calling this is myself. Like obviously things change, but this part of me is part of me that I love. So that I think is a realization that I got. People call that different way, like self-acceptance or self-love, but that's definitely something I didn't have in younger age
Mm.
while, just kicking off my career or like getting into schools. That type of transition in my past, I cared a lot about how others would perceive me. I want to be productive, I want to be useful to the society, and I want to be proven by whoever could satisfy me as a validation figure. Could be your boss, could be your, ex-partner or partner, could be your parents, those factors to validate that you're worthy. I constantly did that. And today's education probably different, but like how I was raised, I think it was easy for me to be attached to that or be depending on that. And when you have that many factors, when the identity doesn't no longer serve you, you still try to hold on to it because you are so emotionally attached to it. And that I think is a lot of people had to face in their transitions in adulthood.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's just so hard to let go of. It's just so hard to let go.
I think one good question is like, is it serving you or are you serving for that
Right.
identity? I think is one question.
Right. And it's interesting. I'm reflecting on myself, and I completely resonate with what you shared about wanting to receive that validation and acceptance from family, from partners, from for me, from professors and teachers and
Yeah.
educators. I strived so hard constantly to receive some kind of like you you're amazing, Nina, or you did it,
Mhm.
Nina. Like I would work so hard and feel still so alone and empty inside. And that's when I really started this journey of connecting more with myself and learning more about what do I want and what do I need and what can I actually give myself. But this identity of wanting to prove myself, like these behaviors of wanting to prove and receive the validation, I still feel that. And that part of me is still super present, but it's not taking over my life as much as it did. And what I've been learning with this identity, because I felt so alone, but would get
Mm,
like shots of like happiness when I received that validation. It was such a short spot though, like very, very short lived. I learned that when it was coming from my own heart, like validating myself and accepting myself was just so much more, the energy was so much more expansive and full and deep. And it was like, I can do that for myself whenever, anytime, in any moment. And so this identity, and this really is like 4 or 5 year old Nina.
yeah.
It's just this really young part of me. And I wonder if the question really isn't like letting go of these identities, but
Mm,
making space for them to
yeah.
receive that love and attention from yourself
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. No, definitely.
not externalizing. Because I do wonder, we talk a lot about letting go, and I want to also get into this topic as
Hmm.
well with grief and letting go. But I wonder, I think there's a lot that is misunderstood in this topic, whether if it's identity
Yeah,
or whether it's a partnership, a relationship that you're letting go, whether it's you lost someone
yeah.
really close to you. Like, yeah, I do want to start transitioning into this conversation of grief
Mm,
because there's not that much space for this conversation. I've learned in my life. Like, I think this will probably be one of the first conversations I have about
yeah.
this.
Okay.
I want to ask you, let's start first. What has grief taught you about yourself? And what even is this? What is grief and grieving? Maybe that's going to be good to start out with
Yeah,
explaining
for sure.
definition.
Yeah, what has grief taught me about myself or my life? Or, yeah, I think grief, obviously, by that term is like ambiguous, first of all, and it can look also different depending on the person. But in my case, it taught me that I'm allowed to feel the feelings. And especially after losing my mom, I mentioned earlier that like I was numbing myself, but to address that, it was through like hurting or like dating or drinking, and then later it kind of developed into workaholism. So, and it lasted for 10 years, and then nobody wants to be sad. And the way that I coped was like a common response to like emotional pain that everybody like have probably experienced, which is like avoidance really to your own emotion. But in doing so, I replaced love as well. Like I stopped revisiting the loving memory of my mom so I wouldn't cry. But then over the time, like I could hardly remember her sound of like, her voice. And then I felt like so disconnected from her, but also from like others who tried to support me through this process. I completely like shut down. And I also ultimately like disconnected from myself because I had stopped allowing myself to feel. There's a saying that grief is love with nowhere to go. That's what I came to understand as well. Like, navigate emotions linger because they are like something actually meaningful like love. We must honor that even, in the middle of this pace of this modern life and the pressure to show up. I think we should give ourselves a space to feel what you actually feeling. So that's what grief has taught me. In terms of what is grief, so as you already broke down, my own story of grief is around death, but it comes in many forms, as you mentioned, like as we talked earlier, loss of identity is one, but health condition, the healthy version of yourself versus like after illness, or home, as we talked, homeland, dreams, relationship, or and then one thing such as divorce could swipe all of them, like affect all of that as well, or like even friendship. It has such a huge impact. It's not only death, definitely not. And there's also like ambiguous shape of loss as well, right? Like I had early pregnancy loss a few weeks ago, and it's so early that is not like scientifically typically like call that as a baby, but like it is a sense of loss that I was feeling. So I think this is also why I think grief is neglected and not really talked about, because the definition is so not set and unclear. And also it's negative,
Mm.
brings you or like anger, it's negative. So people try not to touch that subject. Therefore,
Mm.
less opportunity to normalize things around grief. And so yeah, I think today we don't have like shared language or rituals. Grief becomes, as you repeatedly saying that, like isolated or like private or individual thing to deal with. People don't know how to talk about it, they avoid it, say awkward, minimize things, downplay the pain, suppress it, thinking that, oh, this is an internalized shame that I must not show that I'm still struggling or I have to fix it. So I think that's why we kind of, keep it away in this modern life.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. I have never heard this, what you just said, grief is love with nowhere to go. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Oh my God. Something so like that just captures it, grief, so
Mhm.
beautifully. And I also really love what you said about grief being something that it's not just something that can is sad and angry. It can bring up also feelings of like happiness and love. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious because this conversation has so much to do with deep, deep feelings and difficult emotions that perhaps we've never made space for in our life or have never been taught to
Yeah.
feel or make space for. What was your journey like in creating a space for yourself to feel?
Probably the hardest thing that I've ever done, because like I had tendency to shut down.
Mm,
I think a lot of therapy session that I left without opening my heart. I
mm,
think I had to just go through that, I think, in that certain phase. I later did also learn how to do like a little easy breath work or like meditation. I think that forced me to create the space. But creating the space to feel it wasn't something pleasant, because all I wanted to avoid was me crying in front of people. But then you do have to do that or
mm,
create that space in this therapy room. So no, it definitely wasn't pleasant.
mm,
I think I had to kind of force it to myself because I really craved change so much. I just couldn't stay how closed off I was. As you said, like without being vulnerable, you can't really express love or share that with someone that you want to like lead a life with. And I came to that realization. So since then, that was my goal. Like I do have to make myself happy. And to do that, I want to feel happy. And to feel
mm,
happiness, I want to feel loved and express love to others. And with that reaction, I feel loved. And that's the logic behind it. I want to hack it was, I think it by now tells a lot about my personality, but that was how my brain was working back then
mm.
to create the space.
I'm curious with what you were saying during the journey, this avoidance or resistance, can we call it as well?
Yeah.
Avoidance and resistance. I'm curious if in my own journey with feeling difficult feelings, it's usually for me not the feeling of sadness or crying or I mean sometimes when I cry, yeah, that hurts a lot, especially
Yeah.
in this throat. Oh my God. But it's for me, I've learned that it's like the resistance that hurts the most
Okay. Interesting.
or the avoidance where it's like and I experienced this quite recently with this PhD identity. Like
Mm.
there's so much resistance to writing the dissertation and finishing because I learned that a lot of this decision to go into academia was from my mom. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was this part of me that was just so like, what the hell am I doing? Like angry, upset, felt powerless. And it created a lot of resistance to just feeling what was underneath it all, just like a lot of sadness, really.
Okay.
But for you, I'm curious with the feeling of it. Can you talk a little bit about avoidance and the suppression and how that looked like in your
Okay.
journey? Because I also think this is such a big conversation in the world with the tools that we have and technology that we have with social media and phones and AI. Like, there's just so many ways to numb and
Mm-hmm.
not feel. And especially, like, I'm just thinking, especially now where we're at, I think if most people were to be honest with their screen hour count, it would be up in like
Mm-hmm.
four or
100%.
five, like 8 hours a day. And it's like, oh, I didn't even notice because we
Mhm.
pick it up so habitually now. But I'm
Yeah.
just really curious about this conversation of like avoidance and
Yeah.
resistance
Hmm.
to feeling.
Yeah. I think to start with how avoidance and resistance look like in my journey was that I would just shut down so that I don't have to think about it at all.
Mm.
So I do remember like the day after my 2 days maybe after my mom passed. I was 17. I even wasn't going to school every day because my mom passed from the cancer, and then we had a lot to do like at home, like it was half home care situation. So like everybody in the class knows my situation kind of indirectly, and I was really ashamed of me not being present at school. So as soon as that she's passed and we did the funeral, and the next day I would show up to every single class, club activity, just put happy face on my, like, on me, and then like I'm okay. I think that was the first thing that like I got my hands on, because like that was what I needed to keep my identity as a student. I wanted to be a normal student for like 1 2 years. I try not to think about it. I minimize the time that could possibly bring me back of the fact that my mom has passed. So I think that's the seal that I would create for myself instantly. So that's how the avoidance was generated. And I think the justification lie that I had in my head was like, if I minimize the opportunity to be sad, to be in a negative emotion, then I'll simply be less negative person, less negative every day, which led to the prolonged grief, situation for over 10 years. So that was just a lie that I had, but that was my thinking process. I really like that you said earlier that, like, on your journey of this identity transition that you experienced recently, you would talk to yourself, childhood self, maybe Nina at 4 years old. And I really, really love that you're doing that, because that's technically is like an internal family system healing exercise. And I think from me, so shut down to transition to me that give it a try, to give myself a space, give myself to room to feel. I think it helped a lot for me to have coaching skill set of giving different perspective to myself. Like, I am my older self, I am my younger self, I am your future self, for I am not you, but this is what I would advise if you are my friend, sort of like perspective change. And that brought me a lot of healing. That will highlight a lot of my needs that never was satisfied as a child, or as those like tough grief time that I experienced loss. So I think that was the step that I went through, what made me little open to accept the space. I think that was the beginning of the journey looked like. On daily day-to-day basis, I completely agree with the technology part that you brought up as well. A lot of my clients, whatever the theme is, we often talk about the source of anxiety or overwhelming feeling, often is the digital world. Yeah, it's just happened to be true to many of my clients, and I think globally. And I simply advise to restrict the use of it. So phone use can, increase stress hormones even without scrolling, doom scrolling those negative content or sad news. It's just designed to release the hormone quote, the stress
Mm.
one. So what I personally practice is that most of the day I adapt like 8 a.m., 8 p.m. rule, where I don't touch my phone before 8 a.m. or after 8 p.m. And instead I start or close my day with walks or meditation and, a little screen-free space for myself to be myself.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, I love that you created that system for yourself. It's so hard too
Yeah.
because I think right when we have some sort of feeling come up, irritation at work or difficulty with our partners or friends or just boredom, that's the first
Yeah.
initial response is to go do something that will take you out of your feelings or out of your body in a way. Like that's what doom scrolling is basically. Like you're not really there. You're kind
Yeah.
of a zombie. And I see
And
that
it's also
happening
isolation and loneliness, as you
completely.
mentioned earlier. Like
Yeah.
I usually talk or write a lot about like how to regulate your emotions or like how to calm nervous system, but like with seeing what's happening in the world at large, like I also have different take that is not you. That is, I think we became incredibly good at like turning this complex collective issue to like
Mm,
individual responsibility, like self-improvement
mm,
take that like the reason that you can't afford a house is not because you are trying this budgeting up. It is because of the economy that is way larger, and you just have to give a room to accept that like you are not, solving the issue that you have in life, and that's okay.
mm,
You can't go up to your people while you're having this really, really sad event, and that's okay. And like we don't really have a room to say that because the world is just go, go, go. And you just feel like if the problem is there, I have to come up with a solution to fix that. Like so many, this fixation on self improvement is just like too much, I feel. So many
mhm,
beyond control. And that again is like, I don't necessarily say let go of it, but it's okay that you are not handling everything in a right way that you imagine because it is hard by default.
mhm. Yeah, this is a really important topic. Self-improvement, I would argue, is benefiting capitalism
Yeah,
simply,
I agree.
completely.
100% agree.
And it really, yeah, this would be a great podcast topic too. I should do in the future. But it does bother me that self-improvement really is this like in the end way to get more productive. It
Yeah,
seems like it's all about how do we contribute more? How do we improve this about ourselves in order to perform at a better
yeah.
faster, more energized pace. It makes this work if it's an umbrella like self improvement, self development, and sometimes it can like connect to healing as well.
Mhm, mhm.
It, I feel like it happens in very sneaky ways, this
Yeah,
space. Like where it's like, oh, no, it really is all about me and like self-love and acceptance, but actually you don't feel better,
that's
really.
the thing. Like it is, I think it's more theory, less action is what is happening. Like this
Mm,
misguided belief of like that self-development makes us better people, but like if we really want to be a better people, we have to focus on like others and not only individualism. And then the gap between like understanding self and like actually showing up for others. Like sure, inner work has its place, but I guess my point is like too much theory and not enough action. And then I think if you focus on being more loving and empathetic and like compassionate, all we like, but then we actually like, something like not doing something to help others, like family or like close friends, then what's the point? Because like making change on that scale, like 2 meter radiant, is like how you change the world at large. And because the issue that we are surrounded today is like so big, we crave convenient ways of controlling, such as meditation app or like budgeting app. It's not that. The reason that you don't have like unaffordable healthcare is not because you don't try meditation. It is because the society is so individualistic and like forgotten how to form a community and trusting collectivism. Like I think that's more of a point, which I don't. I guess I don't often talk about, but that's essentially my take. And I guess you kind of feel that way. All of, other wellness practitioners have this feeling somewhere in this overly capitalized world.
Mhm. Completely. I really want to go into this in a future episode with you. That would be such a great episode because I've
Yeah,
been
that
thinking
would
about it a lot more, but and also doing some reflection of this. The big reason that I do inner work is to be a better person for my community. If it
yeah,
really comes down to it's to be a better partner, a better friend,
yeah,
a more loving family member that isn't so mean to my brother and mom. Like the reason is not, of course, it's beautiful to feel love and acceptance within, but it fills my cup to give
yeah.
to community, to my people. And I'm curious when we connect this back to this theme of grief, how
Hmm.
has community and your people, and because learning more about you, it sounds like the people in your life, it's just something that you value deeply.
Yeah.
I'm understanding that about you. So how is community and grief interconnected?
Yeah, no, 100%. Earlier I said the first thing that I did after losing my mom was to show up to school with happy face. And I think that was because I put this pressure on myself that to be accepted as a member of society. It's like such a small society that I had. It was just one classroom, but it was really meaningful to me that, and to protect my identity is to be productive, and being sad, depressed is not productive. Therefore, I have to get there. I have to show that I've fixed it. So I think it's a good example of isolation. And that isolation created this suppressed or delayed grief for me. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's like internalized shame. And I think we probably like lost this take of like treat loss as a collective problem solving, but this is so personal. I think that kind of attitude was generated in modern life, but not probably like long time ago. I think we did have ritual, more like, bigger funeral or bigger ritual or languages even to treat grief, but like also death. Like it was before, it was more shared human experience than it is today, because it was for the community to support people who are in that situation. So like, for example, we don't really see grieving exist at work at all, probably. And there's almost like a pressure that like prolonged grief is like not productive or profitable. I think in Japan, if you lose your relative direct to your like siblings, or even siblings, I think, because it is like nitoshin. But unless it's your spouse, kids, or direct parents, you can't get any days off that is longer than 2 days or something. I think we see that everywhere, that, we don't accept that as an excuse not to be productive or profitable. Um, I'm pretty sure it didn't like exist, 2000 years ago. So my point again, which is going to be carried on to our next episode, is that it's also capitalism influenced, but also
Yes.
there's cultural pressure to suppress grief in modern world.
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite of that, how the grief could look like, is that you do have a supportive community that could actually like give a room for you to talk about those sad feelings. They could share bits of their life, like they could cook meal for you, they could bring, something to help your day-to-day chore. That I think is more what we probably lost but existed long ago.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, yeah. I'm now interested in learning more about how grief was practiced thousands of years ago in more
Yeah.
ancient cultures. I'm curious with more of a simple question for those that have people in their life that they deeply love that are experiencing some sort of grief right now.
Yeah.
I think all of us, in a way, are always experiencing some grief. What, as a friend, as a family member, as a community member, what can be a simple action step? You just name something beautifully that's like showing up with food or just
Yeah.
open ears for your community, for a friend, a family member. But else is a practice that someone can take when wanting to support someone through their grief journey?
Yeah, I might not put this into right wordings, but I think to be there, if you like ask somebody that like, oh, if you need help, please let me know, or like let me know how I can support you, then this person would never come back to you to give you task list. And I think we all know that. I think obviously like you can't really expect them to have like, for example, what was your dad like, asking what was your dad like versus like, I'm so sorry for your loss, I think has different level of autonomy in that attitude. You might not receive an answer from this person, but I think genuine gesture of like engaging with this person, or yeah, trying to be like really curious on what's the needs of this person is definitely would help. And just, like generally checking in, that attitude would like register in them that, oh, they are there if I want to, and this is a person that if anything happened would have a ear to listen to me. I think that would definitely help. I was thinking about the earlier conversation about like, oh, those kind of collective um attitude to somebody's loss has lost. But I was just thinking, so sorry, this is a little bit random, but I was walking on the street on the other day, and it's elementary school, and then they did have this big banner outside of the school to announce that one of the students' mother has died. And my friend is in that area, so I did like bring that as a topic of our conversation, and she did describe that. So the school decided to announce that to entire school because this is what they want to mourn together. That's what the school said. And so this student, he was like a single parent household. So she basically lost the parents. And then after that was announced, other kids' parents came to the school to say that, like, I want to adopt her. I was like genuinely really moved by the courage of sharing that responsibility, but it is easy for you not to take an action. I think courage to take the loss as your ball as well, not only somebody's else isolated individual problem. I think it is an opportunity to show the strength of the community as well. And yeah, something that happened in my neighborhood was, I think, an example of that.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing. I've never heard of this before, especially in a school. And I'm reflecting back when I was in grade school, and I had a couple of friends that lost parents and also siblings, but it was so hush hush. It was like it was almost as if like everyone knew what had happened, but no one really knew how to support or even if it was okay to talk about. And I really appreciate what you said about it being this effort of courage and accountability, and you know deep down that most people want to support and do
Yeah.
something, but there's this wall
Yeah.
that has been created in society and with just this overall discourse on grief that we've been talking about, how there's just something that feels like it's too maybe personal or it's not my place. So I love this example that you shared. It's so, so beautiful. And I think it perfectly captures what a beautiful action could be in a community that is mourning someone,
Oh.
to showcase that this happened. So let's get up and support in any way that we can.
Yeah, and that I think is also like looped back to the conversation that we had about that if we want to be a better people, not like fixation on self-improvement, but like we fundamentally want to be connected from one another, and we can show up by focusing on others, not ourselves. I think is also another note that could loop back to this, chaos of self-improvement industry.
Absolutely. Wow. There's so many nuggets in this conversation that I want to dive deeper into and keep learning about and
Yeah, me
talking with
too.
you about.
Everything's
Just
connected.
one last question before we wrap up this conversation that I have for you is if you can offer one message to someone currently in the depths of some kind of grief, what would it be?
Yeah, not in the individualistic way, but I do want to say that you can trust yourself. And it sounds like the very harsh message for like some people, like survivors, but like trusting your resilience. And then resilience is like your thinking pattern and your body reaction and your nervous system. And all those things you can design, you can reshape, you can change, you can build, and you have the power to like rebuild all of that. Trust yourself is a reminder that I want to leave.
So powerful. Thank you so much for this message. And
Yeah.
where can listeners connect with you further? Where can they find you and learn more about all of the wisdom and learnings that you also Toshika has amazing newsletter that I read weekly that I just absolutely love. But yeah, where can listeners connect with you further?
Yeah, I think the easiest is my personal Instagram account. It's Toshika Kosako at Toshika Kosako. It's my name, where you can go to the landing page of the newsletter subscription, etc. So that will be the great place to get connected to.
Beautiful. Yes, I will make sure to put that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Toshika. This was amazing. This was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your story, your wisdom, and I'm so grateful to be connected with you now. I just love talking with you. So thank you.
No, feeling is mutual. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Beautiful. And thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in. We will be back with another episode next week. Thank you. Bye bye.